Hi, I'm Richard from the Grammar Goat English Academy. Welcome to my English language lesson. It's a grammar lesson for you today. If you learn something from my lesson, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to my channel, the Grammar Goat English Academy. Today's lesson is all about a very important and special verb, the verb would. Would is a modal auxiliary verb. Auxiliary verbs are so important in English language grammar because we can use them to do many important things, like make negatives, make questions, make short answers, and make question tags or echo questions. Would is a modal auxiliary verb. This means that would can be used for many different functions. I'm going to show you the two most important functions of would. We use would for hypothetical, unreal situations. Unreal situations in the present, in the future, and in the past. Here is a hypothetical question for you. Would you ever live in another country? The second function of would that I'm going to show you is to give advice. We give advice using would and the expression if I were you. For example, if your friend is sick, you can say, if I were you, I would go to the doctor. Let me show you contractions with would. What happens to would when we join it with other words? I would becomes I'd. So would can become d. Would not, wouldn't. I would not, I wouldn't. Would have, would've. We add a schwa sound, of, would've. I would have, I would've. Okay, are you ready to start this grammar lesson all about would? Remember, if you learn something from the video, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. We'll start with hypothetical situations in the present and in the future. We can use would to talk about unreal, unlikely, hypothetical situations in the present and in the future. The grammar pattern is called the second conditional. Here's an example sentence about an unlikely, unreal, hypothetical situation. If I was rich, I would buy a helicopter. For me, it's very unlikely that I would be rich. But if I was rich, I would definitely buy a helicopter and I would go shopping to the supermarket in my helicopter. Note, we can also switch both clauses. So we can say, I would buy a helicopter if I was rich. Or, if I was rich, I would buy a helicopter. Also, maybe you're wondering if I was, isn't it if I were? Well, actually, in reality, we can use both. If I was or if I were. Here's another example. Today is Monday, but if it was Sunday, I would relax at home. This is an unreal situation because today isn't Sunday, it is Monday. Okay, some practice now. Look at the word in brackets at the start of the sentence. It's been taken out or removed from the sentence. Put it back. Where does it go? This is an excellent test of your English grammar skills. I'll give you 2 seconds. Here's the answer. Check. I would travel around the world if I had lots of money. This is definitely true for me, but it's an unlikely situation. I think this is very unlikely. So I've used the second conditional, a past tense and would, and the bare infinitive. Next, put would back into the sentence. You have 2 seconds. Here's the answer. Check. Would you quit your job if you won the lottery? Again, remember I told you that would is a modal auxiliary verb. We can use it as an auxiliary verb to make questions. Again, winning the lottery is very unlikely, so that's why I've used would. Next, put would back into the sentence. You have 2 seconds. Here's the answer. Check. If he went to the gym, he would be strong. Again, it's an unlikely or unreal or hypothetical situation. And the last one, number 4. You have 2 seconds. Check. If she studied harder, she would have better grades. Okay, how did you do with this grammar practice? Here's the next meaning of would. Hypothetical, unreal situations in the past. Things in past time that didn't happen. The grammar pattern is very long and very complicated. We call it the third conditional. If plus the past perfect is had plus the past participle, would plus have plus the past participle. Wow, grammar warning. This is advanced grammar. Here is a hypothetical, unreal situation. When I was younger and I was a student, I studied Spanish in Mexico. But if I had studied medicine, I would have lived in London. Let's just think about this situation for a second. What did I study? Where did I study? And when did I study? I studied Spanish. I studied in Mexico. And I studied Spanish in Mexico in the past, when I was younger. The unreal hypothetical part is, if I hadn't studied Spanish, if I had studied medicine, I would have lived in London. But I didn't study medicine and I didn't live in London. It's an unreal situation. More practice for you now. Put the word in the brackets somewhere into the sentence. Number 1, you have 2 seconds. If he had saved more money, he would have bought a new car. Or pronunciation, he would have bought a new car. Number 2, you have 2 seconds. Here's the answer. Check. If I had studied film, I would have become a film director. But of course, I didn't study film, I studied Spanish. Again, an unreal, hypothetical, past situation. Number 3, you have 2 seconds. Here's the answer. Check. I would have stayed at home if I had known the film was so boring. Here's the last one. Number 4. Here's the answer. Check. I would have called you if I had known you were ill. Okay, that's the end of our practice with the third conditional for unreal past. Remember, the third conditional is a really difficult, really complicated structure. You can't expect to master it immediately. It will take lots of practice and lots of time. We're going to look at the next function of would now to give advice. Giving advice using would and the expression if I were you. Here is the grammar pattern. Would plus infinitive plus if I were you. For example, I would go to the doctor if I were you. Or, if I were you, I would go to the doctor. If I were you, I would ask for my money back. Or, I'd ask for my money back if I were you. Read the situation and think of some appropriate advice. Use would and use if I were you. For example, I am sad. What advice would you give me? My suggested advice is, if I were you, I would talk to a friend. How about the first situation? I need a rest. This is definitely true for me. What advice would you give me? Here is my suggested advice. If I were you, I would book a holiday. What advice did you give? Why not write it in the comments? Number 2, I'm really thirsty. What is your advice? Here's my suggested advice. If I were you, I'd drink a lot of water. Or, I'd drink a lot of water if I were you. I am cold. Here's my suggested answer. If I were you, I'd put some warm clothes on. Or I'd wear warmer clothes. And the last one, I want a pet. Here's my suggested advice. If I were you, I'd get a dog because I love dogs. Okay, how did you do with giving advice? Did you use would and if I were you? That's the end of this grammar lesson all about the modal auxiliary verb would. If you've learned something from my video, don't forget to like it, share it with your friends and subscribe to my channel, the Grammar Goat English Academy. Would is such an important verb in English grammar. We use it to talk about unlikely, unreal, hypothetical situations in the present and in the future, using the second conditional, and unreal, hypothetical situations about past time, called the third conditional. And, as you've seen, we can also use would to give advice. Thanks everyone, I hope you found the video useful. Good luck with your English language learning, and I'll see you in the next lesson.